there, friends. Tracey Bryant Stuckey here, talking to you about some of the common mistakes or pitfalls that candidates make in Component 3 for the National Board Certification process. Now that scores have been released for another year, some candidates are feeling kind of like a whoa, like why did I only get a 2 when I did such amazing work for the National Board? What did they miss? What did they not understand? What did I miss or what did I not understand? Is kind of going through your head. And with this being 30% of your score for the National Board, it's important that you score well. In my opinion, it's important that you score at least a 2.75 to be able to have enough points to get those fireworks and achieve the certification. Now, of course, there are teachers who haven't scored a 2.75. They've scored lower than that, and they've still earned certification. So there are a lot of routes to certification without getting that in the C3. But if you were to ask me what I'm thinking the minimum magic score is, for me, in all 26 years of my working with candidates as a support provider, the 2.75 is a magic number that gives us comfort. You know, we're able to say, whew, okay, that's good. That's going to pad me a little bit. All right, so here are the common pitfalls causing low scores. And again, this is my opinion, and this is me working with candidates for now over 26 years. Video recording problems, poor camera placement, failure to capture key student-teacher interactions. I'm not real sure what it is, but there's often times where teachers think that the only one the assessor wants to look at is them. And that is not true. They want to see teacher-to-student interaction, student-to-teacher interaction, and student-to-student interaction. So we need to be able to see these interactions. And if it's just panning right up on you and we never can see the kids, that's going to be a problem. Audio quality issues, making it difficult to hear student discussions. Again, we don't just want to see, we need to hear so that we can understand when you are analyzing what's going on in the lesson and what the students know or don't know, we can actually hear it. The evidence is in the video. That's your evidence in Component 3. Inconsistent focus on the candidate during important instructional moments. So again, you know, if the teacher is over teaching at a small group, yet whoever's filming for you is over at a different small group, and we can hear you teaching a different group but can't hear the group they're filming, it's a real problem. So the person who's filming, if you're having someone film you, needs to know the lesson as well as you do, like where you're going to be and what points you're trying to get across and that type of thing. Which leads me to this idea of just setting up a camera and filming all the time and catching something good and then using it. From my standpoint as a coach, I never recommend that. The National Board has set C3 up with the premise that they want to watch you plan first for 2 pages, and then they want to watch you teach and the kids learn, and then watch you for 4 pages, analyze and reflect on that. So just setting up a camera and just trying to film and catch whatever, that's only good for you to do preliminarily to learn where you are strong and where you're weak as a teacher. But I would never say to do that for your actual lessons that you're scoring for, that you're submitting for National Board. Also, recording length violations or improper editing. I always say just don't edit in the initial process. Just don't do it. Stay away from editing, period. And recording length violations, once you go over that 15 minutes that's allowed, they're just not going to watch any more of it. They're just going to turn it off. So if the good stuff that you wanted them to see was after 15 minutes, they're not going to watch it. So don't do that. Instructional design weaknesses are often a problem as well. So lessons that don't demonstrate higher order thinking skills. A lot of times teachers want to stay safe and do lessons where the kids get the answers right or look really, 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 really smart instead of saying, you know, I want to be able to analyze my practice good, bad, and ugly. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking at you being diagnostic about your teaching and you being able to write technically about what you are seeing and what you are not seeing and what you need to do better at and what you will do more of. Insufficient differentiation for diverse learners. So if everybody's doing the same thing the same way, and even your comments to them and feedback to them are the same, that's not going to be good for component 3. Also, a lot of times, once again, I go back to teachers believing that the assessor simply wants to see you in action. And so there's limited evidence of student engagement. We need to have high student engagement. It's their learning. They need to be doing something, whether that be going back and forth with you as the teacher. Obviously not the entire 15 minutes, but they can't just be staring at you for 15 minutes. That's not going to work. Lack of clear connection between objectives and assessment and feedback. Feedback is huge here in C3. So if your feedback is more like, great job, I like the way you're thinking, that was really good, oh, keep going, you're doing great, that does not go with a learning objective of the students are able to identify and apply least common multiple. Right? So you got to get the feedback relative to the objective. And that takes practice. So again, set up your film, watch yourself. What does my feedback look like on an everyday type point with these kids in this class? Activities that don't match developmental level of students. This often sends red flags up to assessors that, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. Are these kids within age of this certification area? What's going on? Does this teacher really know her content in this age band? So don't send red flags up like that. And then limited evidence of feedback to students in general. So there just might not be any feedback at all. Might just be going through the motions of the lesson and never helping the kids. And feedback can look like helping them dive deeper, giving them some more information. I like the way you said that. Have you thought about whatever? Helping them to understand when their thinking is not exactly where it should be and how to transform that thinking. Or, oh, Philip, look over here at Shanice and tell Shanice what you just said. Okay, Shanice, now what do you make of what Philip said? That's feedback related, and that's getting the students engaged in their learning. Written commentary issues, many times it's very descriptive instead of analytical. The evidence comes from the analysis and the reflection. The description helps build the frame of the house and the base to hold everything else inside. The goodness is inside, from the windows and the doors inside. That's the goodness. So we want to make sure that we describe, but keep that limited to when you see those what questions. When you see the whys and the hows, we need to be analytical reflective. Failure to connect instruction to student needs. So again, you might just be doing a lesson because that's the next lesson you do in your class. And you're not really connecting it to what are their needs at that point and who are those kids. There also might be a weak rationale for why you're using the small group or the whole group or the one-on-one that doesn't make sense to the assessor. There could be limited reflection on the effectiveness of your teaching strategies. Again, that happens when teachers choose less higher order thinking, things that the kids are just going to get right. So there's not much to analyze and reflect on because they just got everything right. They just did everything well. Oh, it was great. They met all the goals. I mean, what else are you supposed to say, right? There is no reflection. That's why it is better to ramp up the rigor a little bit and be okay with the fact that some of them aren't going to get it. And then what will you do next time? And how did your teaching strategies work or not work for you? Missing connections between assessment and future instruction. So if you have used assessment or your feedback, what are you going to do in future instruction for all of that you had to do in that lesson that was on film? What now do we need to do next? Or did you get that? Did you get that you kept having to give this particular feedback and your future instruction is going to have to match that? Missing or weak description of the learning environment. So you've really got to tie in how that learning environment is helping the students. And then poor connection between context and instructional choices. So it's the alignment is huge here. You have to align things, and you'll see it in your rubric. So go back over to your rubric about that. All right, knowledge of students. So oftentimes I'll see teachers use like superficial descriptions of their student characteristics. An example of that would be they're visual learners, they're auditory learners. That's kind of superficial when you could be a lot more specific to that. So these are visual learners who learn best through using technology tools and working together to do projects that require them to ... Right? That's much more specific. There are weak connections between student needs and instructional connections. You've heard me say that before, right? The second time I've said that in this video. Don't let that happen to you. Lack of specific examples showing knowledge, application, and analysis of student impact. So that's the alignment that you are connecting to the things that they need to know content-wise and applying it to your lesson through strategy, so then you can analyze the impact on the students. So, and it all comes from the knowledge of your students. That's why when teachers are out in the Facebook groups going, what's the best lesson? Give me a lesson. The best lesson is the one that's right for your students, not a lesson that works for National Board. It does not work that way. Equity and fairness issues are sometimes a problem in C3. You need to be able to showcase that you have an equitable, fair, and diverse classroom. So remember that the National Board believes that children should appreciate diverse opinions of others. That's important. So when we're watching them learn, and if they are talking to each other and with each other, they should be able to appreciate those diverse opinions. There may be limited evidences of inclusive practices. Again, you may just showcase everybody doing everything the same way, the right way, the good way, and nobody struggles and nobody needs scaffolding or anything like that. And you might, be an art teacher and, you're just looking at artists that have the same skin tone and are of the same sex, all white males, instead of looking at Hispanic artists, looking at African-American artists, looking at women. We want to make sure we have inclusive practices. Poor documentation of equitable participation. So you might not document at all how not be able to document at all how it was equitable, meaning the same kids are getting called on over and over again. And of course they're getting the answers right? Because that's what we think the National Board wants to see. What they want to see is how you are recognizing your practice is right or wrong for your students. Limited strategies for ensuring access for all students. So again, some of the kids may not be able to get into a conversation, or they may not be able to work in group work. How are you ensuring that they can all do that? What does it look like on that film? So let's go over some critical areas that you can improve in here. All right, with your planning and your preparation, develop a detailed rationale for your instructional choices. Like, why does this instructional choice match small group? Or this instructional choice match whole group? Best way to do that is, why does it not go with the other? Why would I not do this instructional strategy and choice over in whole group if I chose small group? Do you see what I'm saying? So rule out why you couldn't do it in one-on-one or small group, and you need to do it in whole group, why it's better. That way you'll get that detailed rationale. And it's believable. It makes sense. It's not just because that's what our lesson plans in our curriculum told us to do. Create clear connections between objectives and activities. So again, it's alignment. If we do not have our goals and our objectives spewing out of our mouths, and the students don't know them and they're not spewing out of their mouths, I mean, not literally like the students will ... but like, okay, boys and girls, remember, if we are doing ABC, where are you in the process right now, understanding and being able to identify or compare and contrast or whatever it is they're doing. And they would be able to utilize that terminology. You know, we are comparing and contrasting this, and this is what we've noticed. So they're using the verbs. They understand what's going on in the instruction. And so there will be alignment in those lessons. Remember, your only evidence for C3 are the videos. So it needs to be seen in the videos. So if your videos are not prepared well, if you haven't planned for them, you just set up a camera and you went to see what shook loose, then you may not have all of this. Consider various student needs and backgrounds. So when you look at your lessons, did you consider all of your students and what their needs and backgrounds were? The other thing we can do is we can focus on the analysis rather than the description. If you're not a really good analytical writer, do some research on what really good analytical writing sounds like. You know, see what happens when you write a paragraph about your family vacation, describing it, and then put it into a chat bot and see what the chat bot comes back out with to analyze your family vacation, right? And that's how, because that's your train of thought, what does analysis look like versus description? Do something that's really close to you and that you know really well, like that, okay? Or maybe it's you wrote notes about your sermon at church on Sunday and you're like, I wonder how, the chatbot would analyze this for me. That way you at least get the voice down of what analysis sounds like. And again, I'm not suggesting you use a chatbot to write your paper because that is never going to be good. It's not going to work. They're going to figure it out and flag it. They've got systems in place for that, so don't do it. I simply want you to be able to learn the difference between analysis and description. If you're not a good writer and you don't understand what that means, you got to go with something close to you that you know. And then provide specific examples. Connect choices to student needs. Choices meaning your strategies that you're using to their needs. If you're saying that this is who I teach, don't use something other than. Reflect deeply on the effectiveness of what you're doing. And it's okay if something didn't work. It's okay. What will you do next time and in the future? Use evidence to support your claims. If you make a claim, do you have evidence for it? It's clear. And then write it in the analytical voice. Document student progress clearly. Connect teaching strategies to outcomes that you want to have. So when you create this teacher strategy, in the end, what would that success criteria look like? What would the kids be doing in the video? You want to see it so that it's there. Visualize it so that it'll be in that video. And then you want to analyze effectiveness of all the approaches that you're using. How effective were they? Now, you've got this. Come over and see me. I'd love to take the journey with you. It'll be amazing. If you don't come over, that's perfectly fine. Get in a really good cohort. Get in with someone who can really support you, read your writing, check out those videos. Plan before you film. All right, friends. So good to spend time with you today. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.